Hi, it's Jen Brewer. I'm here at the Collingwood Hospital today showing my technique on how to do a wound packing. So one of the first things I'll draw your attention to is that I always like to do what's called a triangle technique, meaning that we're always working from clean to dirty. So we're always going in one spot. So all my clean stuff's here, my patient is in one end, and the garbage is in the opposite direction. So for packing, we always have to keep in mind that we want to probe the wound prior to actually putting anything in it. Why? We need to know what direction we're going. We need to know how deep it is. And we need to know, again, how well the patient's going to even tolerate it. So that's one of the main reasons why I always say, oh, that's why there's 2 Q-tips in a package. And also why they put the ruler on the far end so that we can actually probe prior. So that's the very first thing before I open any of my other stuff, is I get into my swab. And today we're just going to use my lovely little bum here that has a small area of a small tunnel that's up top. So again, I'm going to actually, and I always use this soft end. Again, I've never really had one of these break off and into a patient. I'm sure there's that potential, but I've never had one happen. So I'm going to use the soft end and actually probe in to actually see, again, what direction I'm going in, how deep I'm going to have to go. So I always actually use my fingernail at the end to actually go in and see. Then I actually check. That tunnel was 4 centimeters deep, so I have a better idea how much packing I'm going to have to put into the wound. Also, the big important piece to packing is that we want to actually get the packing all the way to the base of the wound. If we're just taking the packing and lightly pushing a little bit in at the edge, it's not going to be very effective. When we're actually doing it, we want to push our Q-tip all the way that 4 centimeters in, or whatever your length is, so that the packing reaches the bottom, because that's what's actually going to allow for the fluid to come out. So again, I know that it's a 4 centimeters I've packed in my wound, then I'm going to throw out my 1 Q-tip. I'm going to open up my dressing tray. I, for the most part, just use this for the drapes and for collection of fluid. So I'm also a really big irrigator. So I like to use these towels as much as they want us to use a whole sterile field. That's great if we're doing a dressing, but when we have a really mucky or dirty dressing, I honestly just use this to absorb fluid. I'm going to put a pair of clean scissors in. Again, those are ones that actually came out of a package. But I also like to use blue pads for this, because we do know that when you irrigate a wound out and clean it out, that's actually the best thing you can possibly do for it, because that's going to get rid of debris, that's going to get rid of any bits and get it really, really clean. The cleaner you get it, the better it will work out to be. So again, I actually often use all these towels and whatnot because I'm crazy with irrigating. Well, most of the time you have to put on a gown prior just to keep it from being wet. The reason why is the PSI, or the pounds per square inch of pressure inside these bottles, just launches the fluid out. So when we're doing it, we actually want to go full force. I won't go into but see how quickly how fast it goes in. So you really want to try to use this whole bottle into that wound to really irrigate out. Okay, so again, so you're going to need all this stuff to kind of collect the fluid as you're pushing it in. So again, we want to try to use that full force so that we're actually pushing it all out, and that's how we're going to irrigate and clean it. So then I use all these towels to kind of dry them off. I try not to dry inside the wound, but all around it, so that again our outer dressing, our tape, is going to actually stick. So after I get some of the water mopped up, it's time to do the packing. So today I'm going to use some mee salt. Mee salt I always use when things are very mucky, so anything that's very purulent, a new abscess or something that was infected, is when I'm actually going to be using this. Mee salt is usually changed on a daily basis. There are lots of other packing options, and we will detail that in the notes when we're using something else. So the mee salt, again, will go into my tray. I still have my other stick, and this is where I really like these little forceps, because they will go right into the mee salt, and then you're really just rolling it off of it. Okay, so again, after I've cleaned, we've dried, we're going to do our packing. I'm going to hold my packing in here, keeps it nice and sturdy. And then what I actually do with any packing is I'm almost bending it over the edge. That when I get up to the patient, because it'll be hard for you to see, I'm actually have it bent like this, so that my Q-tip is inside here and I'm going to go right to the base with it. That is, again, the most important part with packing, is that we're getting it all the way to the bottom. So when I get up to them, you'll see how that bend happens, and then I'm going all the way to the base. Now, again, we don't want to overpack. We don't want to put too much in. We don't want to make it tight, because that'll actually put pressure on the edges and hold the wound open. But again, if I can, and even if I only get it to the base and that was all that the patient tolerated and I cut it, that's actually better than nothing, because that's going to be what wicks all the fluid out. So again, if they are tolerating it, and I can gently, you know, loose as a goose, not tight like a turkey, put some more packing in to the base to help fill that dead space, it is beneficial. Again, we don't need it in super tight. We always want to leave a tail. And I also don't want to ever try to put more than one piece of packing in a wound. Even a few days ago, I had a wound where I actually had to use 4 packages of Me-Salt. So what I would end up doing, so say I decided to pack this one, I would actually take it all the way out, and I would tie 1 package of Me-Salt to the other. So I would actually take the 2 ends, tie them, and double knot them so that I could have longer packing, and I would fill the whole cavity. That's not likely the case in this, but then I would be able to fill it. So again, those are the big tips that I use with it. Now again, if we are just doing this little wound, we would cut and leave a tail so that we do know that there is packing in here. We also want to document always how many pieces we've removed and how many pieces we've put in. Again, it should always be one piece, but again, if you found more than 1 piece, you also want to document that you found more than 1 piece, because maybe someone else didn't find it one day and thought it just had fallen out, or in the shower, or something had happened, but it'd be nice to recognize that we've found both of them. Okay, and then we're just going to apply our cover dressing to this. And again, that can be on a range of dressings. Again, key points: always probe once before we pack. Always try to pack right to the base. And again, always use 1 piece, and if not, 1 really, really long piece. Okay, and that's wound packing.